Moving on, warm welcome to Dr. Andrew Taylor from the ASFP. Now, Andrew was appointed as the ASFP Technical Officer in January 2018. And again, a lot of experience in the industry and has over 30 years in the fire protection and coating industry. Having worked in the field of fire resistance product research and development and testing, Andy initially worked on reactive coatings of steelwork at Lees Paints and Sherwin-Williams, more recently on both intumescent coatings and fire stopping at Tremco. Andy has worked on various ASFP, CPE, CEN and BSI committees involved in writing standards and guidance. He has a chemistry degree from Bristol University and a PhD in material science of intumescent coatings from Manchester. Well, I'm really looking forward to that because I think without doubt, huge credibility and technical knowledge. Over to you.
Peter, thanks for the kind introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. I'm going to do a quick tour through this. We put this together, aspects of passive fire protection in many ways. I'm going to build on a lot of the stuff that's already been said by the previous speakers, but here we go. I'll give you a quick introduction to ASFP, Association of Specialist Fire Protection from the UK, and then we'll look at how to ensure its PFP is done properly. And we've got a whole one slide on competence, which is a big topic at the moment in the UK as a result of various activities that we're doing post-Grenfell. In terms of who ASFP are, we are a trade association in a similar way to what you've just seen from Bill, but we're based in the UK primarily, although there are a number of international members, including people in the UAE. We've got over 30 associates, and they tend to be test and certification bodies. We've got a membership and a rapidly increasing number of installer contractor members. A large number of manufacturer members, virtually all the main players in the UK, and some from Europe, a few members, international members, some individual members, and you can see. So it's a wide cross range from across all different aspects of the PFP industry within. ASFP started in the late 70s, and we came together to produce guidance on how you would take testing information and how you should then take that testing information and use it. And that's we produce a series of things called the colour books. You see the yellow one on the screen there. And many of these are actually referred to in the UK building regulations and statutory guidance. We've also got a range of library of videos and stuff on our website. We've been running a webinar program, again, free to join, which has been really successful over the last 12 months, as a lot of us have moved into online education and the likes to try and get our message out. And we've recently published a joint industry guide on fire stopping. And again, I'll talk a bit more about that document, but all of these things are free to locate, free to obtain from our website, highlighted in the box there. And as everybody knows, we've been doing an awful lot of training recently. We've been concentrating on training, trying to upskill people and trying to increase people's knowledge going forwards. We've been running a level 3 and a level 2 certificate in passive fire protection, where we provide the training. Then the Institution of Fire Engineers runs an examination. The examination has national recognition. It's recognised by a thing called Ofqual, which is the qualification regulator in the UK. And so that's a recognisable qualification in passive fire protection. And what's going to happen now, previously these have been run as a classroom course with an awful lot of follow-up learning, but new in 2021, these things are going to move online. And we've got this new system with an adaptive learning platform, whereby the teaching is tailored to meet the user's needs and work with the user's existing knowledge and what the user needs to learn. And that we're quite excited about as we see how that unfolds going forwards. Okay, that's a quick canter introduction for you. What if passive fire protection? I'm sure I don't need to explain this too much. We're talking about things that are built in to the building fabric that don't require any significant activation, interaction. They're just present and they work. And I've seen that we've discussed fire stopping on Bill's presentation previously. We've got ducts and dampers. We've got structural steel protection, reactive coating on that particular picture, and we've also got one of our latest areas that we'll talk a little bit more about is active fire curtains. So compartmentation to allow an open plan appearance, but then when activated, these things drop down and provide you with the compartmentation. And across all of these three things, we would say that all of these things, we would say there are three things that you need to get to make sure that the actual things are installed properly. All right, you need a product that works. And the best way to demonstrate that is using third-party certificated products. You need an installer who's going to install it properly. And you need, so again, we'll talk a bit more about third-party certification of installers. And we need to get the design and the specification right. And we've concentrated an association prior to this. We've concentrated an awful lot on product certification, quite a bit on installer certification. And what we're concentrating on at the moment, one of the things we've been concentrating on in the last couple of years, is making sure that we get the design and specification side right. So if we look at that, why do we need a third-party certification of products? And one of the challenges is that as we've already said, what we work in a very, very complicated industry. And even when we're talking amongst ourselves, sometimes people get confused between what is a certificate, what is a test report, and what is a self-declaration. And these are three different ways, three different levels that people have and use to explain what their products can do. And if it might be self-declaration to say, I've tested my product to a particular standard, or it's been designed to meet a test standard, or it complies with the test standard. And you sort of, when you look at people that say things, make statements like that, you ask the question, well, is there actually any guarantee that what I'm being told is correct? And because, to be honest, so I mean, designed to a test standard, you can't design to a test standard. You either use it or you don't. It complies with a test standard. You know, has it been tested? Was the test impartial? And you're left with a level of risk that if you're looking at something in where it's just a manufacturer's self-declaration. Now, alternatively, of course, some people get a third-party test report. So we go to a third-party lab, we run a test, and we get my product was tested. And some people will hold up a test report and say, I have a certificate. But a test report is only a snapshot. And if you buy something from a manufacturer that's today, is there any guarantee that what you're buying today is representative of what was tested? And so how do we know that? Has there been any subsequent change to materials, to the design of the thing that was installed? And again, there's a level of risk there. But with third-party certification, not only do we demonstrate how the product's behaved, we do audits of the product and the production going forwards. So as a result, we're going to make sure that the product's the same as tested and specified, and therefore that's the route that gives us confidence going forwards. And so in terms of ASFP policy, our policy is big on third-party certification. You see a number of third-party certification organizations who are with members of us. In third-party certification of our products, our manufacturer members are we recommend they third-party certify, and they do, and there is a requirement that they have to do this. And we would always recommend the use of a third-party certified specialist contractor to install passive fire protection. And again, all the installer members of ASFP have third-party certification to cover that particular activity, and that's been the case for 20 years. So that's been a big cornerstone of how we come about and what we do. Now, if we move on to design and specification, I've mentioned before that we produce a series of colour books to help designers and specifiers understand our PFP systems. It's a complicated system. I've been doing some discussions with the Association of Royal Association of British Architects, and we've been talking about with them about passive fire protection, and it's really you know, they would like us to be able to sort passive fire protection out in half a dozen slides, and we can't do it. And when we point out to them, it's very complicated. You know, they recognize they need to get better and they need to do something, but it may be that it's not every architect is ever going to go out there and learn how to design and specify passive fire protection. It's too complicated. If we look at this, we've published the Black Book, which I said is our new colour book that covers the active fire curtains you saw on the previous slide. It explains how to use. There's a really complicated series of tests that these curtains go through to enable you to get certification so you can put the product on the market. Okay. However, when you then take those tests and you want to use them, that's really very complicated. It shows a picture that explains how to do radiation calculations to ensure a protected escape route remains tenable so that people can get past the curtain in the event of a fire. And so here we have a list of 10 questions which are contained within the Black Book with explanations and detail. There isn't time to go into this in any great detail, but you can see how complicated this is. That gives you, make sure that you've got aware of how to run some of these calculations and gives you advice on how to do this. Okay, that's this is again, this is one particular thing, but it's not a unique thing for fire curtains. You know, we have an advisory note on specification for reactive coatings for structural steel. Again, it has a checklist. It has a checklist in here of about a dozen questions to make sure that the bid submittal that you've got is correct and has been designed correctly, and to result in a safe structure. One of the key things that I come across on an awful lot of time is the inappropriate use of a critical steel temperature, whereby if we just increase the critical steel failure temperature from 500C, 600C to 700, 750, we need less passive fire protection. But does that mean we've got a safer building, or does that mean that we've got a structure that's likely to fail prematurely? And do people understand that, and has the right level of rigor with a choice of a critical for temperature been taken? And lastly, I mentioned this at the start, we produced a new guide on specifying fire stopping. It was a collaborative approach involving ourselves, groups of trade bodies that were interested in dry lining, trade bodies that are interested in passing services forwards and backwards through building. And what this is really the case. It advocates that you design it earlier and in greater depth. And it defines 9 golden rules that underpin that. But one of the reasons why we were trying to do that is to avoid something like this image here. Okay, this image here, from a services standpoint, spatial coordination standpoint, it's brilliant. Somebody's done a fantastic job. They've got all the services nice and neat and passed them through a really efficient opening. And we're in a situation here where that, from that standpoint, that looks fine. And what was happened in the past is that the fire stopping of that is given to a contractor in what's called the contractor's design portion. And the contractor comes along and looks at that and thinks, how on earth do I fire stop that? I can't get near it. It's all massively complicated. I can't get in and fit all the bits in. There's bits of that I can't get to. Even if I could get to it, there isn't a test standard that covers in the UK. There isn't a test standard that covers the presence of ducts and dampers in the same opening as pipes and cables. We've got one coming, but it will only cover ducts and pipes and cables, or dampers and pipes and cables. It wouldn't necessarily cover everything you've got there. there are two dampers in that picture that aren't in the plane of the wall. That's a real challenge for you, a real problem for you going forward. And so the contractor's going to be faced with something that, to be honest, is quite almost unprotectable. How's he going to deliver that? He's going to need to get some form of engineering judgment. There's going to be some form of risk involved in doing that. And so the idea is to promote people to think about these things in greater depth and earlier in the construction process, so as to avoid the situation that we have here. I've got one last little area to talk about, getting it right. Somewhere sat in the middle of all this, in the middle of this, in this space, is competence. It's the one topic that binds all this. And we've got a whole series of new regulations coming about competence. And what I would encourage you to say is that the way we're looking at it in future, we're going to break competence down into certain subtle elements. And the question is, what does competence look like? And it could look like a random picture of somebody holding a mastic gun. But we're going to take it forwards. It's going to be considered as a function of skills, knowledge, experience, and behaviors. And that's our sort of our 4 watchwords at the moment on competence. And it looks like that skills, knowledge, and experience are going to be done on an individual basis, and may well be done as some of that we'll be able to do through qualification. Some of that will need to be done through the third-party certification route, and behavior will be an organizational competence, and again, whether that's done through third-party certification. Or so there was going to have to be a subtle change in how these systems work as we go forwards, to consider how we deal with these things. And the good news is that's it from me. I've tried to cover that fairly quickly. I hope that was okay and of interest. And I think that takes us into the questions and answers session, Peter.